All right, today we will start. Okay, let us see. Okay, today we will start the next topic that is regarding the wind and Eolian landforms. So, as we all know, that there are four geomorphic agents. There are glaciers, there is wind, there is water, and then there is ice. So we have already covered glaciers, and today we will turn towards the Aeolian landforms. And in Aeolian landforms, we will try to start with some of the Aeolian processes, and then comes up with the Aeolian landforms. That includes erosional landforms, depositional landforms, conclusions, and references. Okay. Then comes introduction. We can say that wind is one of the important process, and as we classified the geomorphic processes into two types, that were the endogenetic processes and exogenetic processes. And as you know, endogenetic processes are mostly related to the um internal heat and the processes that are operating from inside the earth, and exogenetic processes are those that are part of the earth surface, and mostly are affected by one of the geomorphic agents like groundwater, running water, glaciers, wind, waves, currents, tides, and tsunamis. And these are some of the and wind is one of the agents in geomorphology that gives us some spectacular depositional and erosional features that are otherwise not possible without the wind. Let us see who is waiting in the room. Okay. I suggest you guys join early in the class because it disturbs everyone when we go back and then okay. Eolian processes, normally it refers to the wind's ability to shape the earth. Wind, as we think, cannot erode. जैसे हम सोचते हैं कि जो wind है वो कैसे erode करती होगी, how it can transport and how it can deposit materials. Eolian processes are important in arid and semi-arid environments such as deserts. And deserts, you know, are those areas where we have less precipitation, जहाँ पर कम बारिश होती है. और इंटरेस्टिंगली डेजर्ट्स के हवाले से सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट पार्ट ये है कि डेजर्ट्स में एक ग्रेन साइज जो है वो मिसिंग होता है और उसको हम कहते हैं क्ले. तो जिस भी लैंडस्केप के अंदर क्ले कम हो जाएगी, क्ले साइज मटेरियल्स कम हो जाएंगे, वो एरिया आपका डेजर्ट बन जाएगा या उस एरिया में डेजर्टिफिकेशन हो जाएगी. बहुत से ऐसे कंट्रीज जो इस वक्त डेजर्ट हैं, जस्ट लाइक सऊदी अरेबिया और द मिडिल ईस्ट कंट्रीज, in the geological past they were not deserts, they were green places, and overall the changing climate and the changing global temperatures have changed some of the green places on earth into desert places. As we know, the processes of uh, geomorphology are active all the time as we speak, and wind is very important agent in that. Some of the effects of wind, that includes abrasion or corrosion Then comes deflation and attrition. So abrasion is, let us see who is there. Okay. Okay. We have abrasion or corrosion, and it means that the abrasion is actually the grinding action of wind. जब wind blow करती है किसी surface पे, तो it carries small sand grains, and as it carries and it blasts those sand grains against the surface from where it uh, blows. And we will see shortly a diagram that shows how the wind works as abrasion. और abrasion में normally जैसे हमने पढ़ा था glaciers में, that they grind, and grinding means जैसे आप किसी surface के ऊपर you are pressing some particles with a greater speed, and as a result we have the abrasion. And then comes deflation. Deflation basically ये होता है कि अगर आपके किसी एरिया में there are loose fragments available, तो जो wind है it carries the loose fragments or fine grain material from that place, और ऐसी जगहों को हम डिफ्लेशन बेसन्स कहते हैं, जहां पर आपके पास कोर्स ग्रेन मटेरियल रह जाए, लेकिन जो फाइन ग्रेन मटेरियल था लाइक सिल्ट, वो मटेरियल विंड जो है वो कैरी करके एक प्लेस से लॉन्गर डिस्टेंस पे दूसरी जगह पर ले जाए. जैसे आपने देखा होगा sandstorms, they show sandstorms in the movies. That is actually the wind is carrying a larger amount of sediments in it, and as it moves over the place, it creates sandstorms. So it is also a part of wind when wind erodes and carries a larger amount of sediments. Attrition is also the grinding action, but actually it results जब एक sand का particle दूसरे sand के particle के साथ collide करता है, and as a result of that, mutual collision brings about a further grinding of the particles. तो जैसे जैसे वो move करता जाता है, it collides, and as a result of its collision with the other particle, the movement is enhanced. Let's see some of these in a figure. Here you can see that the wind is actually blowing, and some of the load is carried in suspension. Some of the particles like fine grain, maybe silt size particles, are carried in by suspension. Some of them, they are just moving along the surface like creep, or they are not lifted. Maybe they are heavy enough, maybe pebble sized material or sand, coarser sand material, वो wind lift नहीं कर सकती, so that the wind just moves these type of sediments along the surface. However, जो sand size particles हैं, maybe fine to medium grain sand, उसको क्या करती है sand, it just picks them and then it just drops them. It picks them and then drops them. It picks them and drops them. So that bouncing or jumping motion of some of the sand grains, we call this process as saltation. So saltation is a process in which sand grains or sediments, they move from one place to another in a jumping fashion. We call that motion as a saltation. The movement of sediments along the surface, we call it as a creep, in which इस moment में the sediments, they are not carried up, they don't jump, and they are not suspended, but as a result of the suspension, they are moving up as a result of the and are carried by the wind in terms of suspension. Or that's the mode of transportation by wind. And we have three methods for transportation by wind. We have saltation. Saltation is actually the transported through a series of bounces, as we have seen. Saltation, a sediment that is here, is it moves to this place and then it moves to the next place. And as a result of that bouncing, we have the so as a result of that bouncing, we have the movement of sediments. Then comes the suspension. Suspensions process. The particles are lifted high into the atmosphere and are carried great distance before they settle. In the suspension, as we have seen, the sediments are carried away, and as you have seen, the sandstorms actually that are basically the suspended load in the wind, and as the wind moves, it carries the sediments to a longer distance. Rolling or traction, it's the movement of particles on ground. Or this process, we also call it creep. You can also call it rolling or traction, in which the sediments are not carried up, but they move along the surface. This is also one of the type by transportation of wind. Then comes the deposition by wind. We will just see briefly and then we end the class for today. In this process, as we know, when wind carries the sediments, it transports them for a longer distance. And as there is a reduction in the velocity of the wind, and if there is any obstruction to the wind or there is any increase in the load. So it means when the wind is carrying sediments in suspension for a longer distance, if there is any reduction in the velocity, the sediments will be settled. Or if there is any obstruction, like if there is a very big mountain in the place of the wind, agar wind kahin se guzar and then there is a big mountain and it cannot cross that place, then it will settle down that load. Also, if the wind is carrying more sediments than the actual load, and as a result of that, we have loaded material in the wind, and wind cannot carry that material, and as a result, it will settle. These are some of the Eolian landforms. Remember, wind, it can form two type of landforms briefly. One is erosional. The other one that wind forms is depositional. Wind can also, just like glaciers, it also have two types of landforms. And in the coming classes, we will try to see these landforms one by one. Today class, the one-liner is that wind is also an important part of geomorphic processes, and I hope you are also doing it in your assignment, because geomorphic processes include endogenetic and exogenetic, and wind is part of exogenetic, and wind is very important agent in desert areas, and it affects in three forms: abrasion, deflation, and attrition. And the transportation by wind is carried by saltation, suspension, and traction. And then we will continue tomorrow by the landforms that are formed by the wind. If you guys have any questions related to today's class, you guys can ask.